And we are back for another edition of Joe's Knows the NFL Draft. I'm Ben Chow, joined by Jack Kemler, Will Krakowski, and Matt Freeman. And guys, our last episode of Joe's Knows the NFL Draft, we talk about those running backs. There's an obvious guy at number one. Everyone can agree on that. For wide receivers, though, it gets a bit shaken up. Our top guy isn't making some other people's top five lists. There's some guys not making top five lists that are number one. Aren't number one on our list. So it is all over the place. It is all jumbled. This is our consensus rankings. We put all of our top fives together. This is what we came up with in the end. Jack, I'm going to throw it to you first. The wide receiver out of North Carolina, slotting in at number 5, Josh Downs.
Yeah, I think Josh Downs, the best thing he does is play the slot. I mean, he played the slot the second best in this class easily. He's actually just so elite at that side of the football. And I believe his route running is also very sneaky good, and his footwork, his agility is all top notch. And he's very small. He's listed at 5'9", but he has a 72% contested catch rate, which is very good for his height and his size, and a 92.1 grade versus man coverage. So he uses his size very well. He uses it to the most he can. The only thing I really don't like about him is that he's just a little bit too limited. He's too small. He can't succeed outside of the slot. And he was really the only weapon at UNC. Drake May favored him very heavy.
Yeah, no, I mean, Jack really did say a good amount of it. He's a smaller guy. I mean, he's 5'9", 175, but uses every little bit of that. He's going to attack the ball. I mean, he's got a smaller catch radius, which is not, ideal for the NFL. He doesn't have that speed either, that top end, but the agility and the footwork really does put him to the top of this class, the ability to break with man coverage. I mean, he beats man very, very well. And I mean, he just a very talented wide receiver underneath.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on a little bit more how he high points the football. It's extraordinary what he does for his little size. He's got very good on-field speed. The combine is 40, a little bit underwhelming, but his speed really pops when you look at the tape. My problem is he really can't block. He's very short, and those two things you need to have a little bit of height, and you need to be able to hold your own in the blocking when you translate to the NFL. I just don't know if all that he's done in college, being a shorter guy who can still go up and bully some secondary defenders, I don't know if he's going to be able to do that in the NFL. Actually, I know he won't be able to do that in the NFL. So his role is going to have to change. He won't be as dominant. So I'm not really a huge fan of him, but I do like his ability to go up and get the football. That's why he slides into number 5.
Yeah, for me, I mean, you talk about him going up and getting the football. I think he just gets the football extremely well all the time. He had the 4th highest catch percentage in the Power 5, the 9th highest catch and traffic percentage in the Power 5 as well. Like, he's just able to go up and get it, or just catch it, and without any disparity, just so consistent with just catching the football, which I know obviously that's what receivers do, but for him to do it so well is extremely impressive. We talked about his speed being okay. I think it is pretty solid. That 4.48 40-yard dash that he ran in the combine, as well as his agility. And he uses that agility on those routes, especially on short routes. I mean, you could see his footwork is just incredible. It gets him into space so quickly. We mentioned his man coverage grade of 92.1 against man coverage this season. And that short route running is on full display. I mean, like I said, he's just able to make space so quickly and so effortlessly with how agile and how quick he is. But the only problem is he's so agile and so quick because of that size. He's 5'9", 171 pounds. I mean, that is not good size for almost any position in the NFL. We're even talking kickers with 5'9", 171. So that is really something you got to worry about. Hopefully he can kind of stock up on the weight a little bit. I know height is a whole different animal. There's not really much you could do there. But if he could just beef up a little bit, I think that would really help improve his draft stock or just his play in the NFL. And the other thing we didn't mention is how good his quarterbacks were at North Carolina. He had Drake May this past season, as well as Sam Howell, who's about to be the Commander's starting quarterback. And both of those guys were incredible during their time in North Carolina. So I'm not saying he's a bad receiver because of it, but we just haven't seen him with a bad quarterback yet because those guys were absolute superstars. So, I mean, in summary, I think he could be a premier slot in the league when he hits his full potential. It just might take a little while to hit that full potential, and we don't know what he's going to look like without that top-end quarterback. We'll move on to our number 4 guy, the wide receiver out of USC, and the Heisman's number 1 target this past season, Jordan Addison. Will, I'll start with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot to like with this guy. I mean, Jordan Addison, he also on the smaller size, 5'11", 5'11", about 173 in the weigh-in. Didn't run extremely fast 40 time, but what he does very well is he's just a very smart receiver. I mean, he finds himself open a lot. A lot of his routes this year were schemed screen routes, which were coming out like on paper doesn't look great, but I mean, he's so good after the catch, and he's such a talented. He's a 3-level runner. I mean, he could do it all in the route tree. He's a very educated route runner. He could find holes. He finds soft spots very well. I mean, he doesn't have any physical ability like speed or agility, which is like throwing him up the list. But his ability to craft himself open and to work after the catch is what really, really gets him here.
Yeah, and his play style, it reminds me a little bit of Justin Jefferson. He's a more of a slim receiver. I think he runs routes and changes direction extraordinarily well. And I think his hands are very good as well. It is a little bit iffy. He did have Caleb Williams throwing him the football and then Kenny Pickett the year before. So it's a bit rough when you, like Chadwick just touched on with our previous guy, Josh Downs. I mean, he's had pro-level guys throw him the football for his college years, but he's a former Biletnikoff winner. And I like his change of direction ability, and I think he will be good in the slot. He's a little bit bigger than Josh Downs if we're comparing the two. But my problems start with he's really never faced press coverage, and when he does, he's not very successful. He's a very frail frame. And again, I just don't think that will translate to the NFL when he's being guarded by linebackers when he's in the slot. I just don't see how he's going to be successful against those bigger guys. I feel like he'll get manhandled. So that's why I'm not super high on him. But his change of direction ability and his hands jump out to me. And I think he is a very solid prospect.
Yeah, for me with Jordan Addison, I think he's arguably the best route runner in the class. I think he definitely is one of the best. There's a guy we're going to touch on a bit later in this. He's probably our number one guy that we all agree might be the best route runner. But, I mean, he is just incredible. Like Will mentioned, that route tree just all over the place with, like, where he is just breaking ankles, just all over the place pretty much. Short routes, intermediate routes, deep routes. And Freeman mentioned he played extremely well in 2021 with Pitt. He was by far the most well-rounded and polished route runner in college in 2021, and it was on full display at the Pittsburgh Panthers. He won the Biletnikoff Award, and it was well-deserved, too. I mean, 1,600 yards, 17 touchdowns, an 89 PFF grade, which is fourth among all Power 5 receivers. Like I said, a great route runner in every aspect, extremely polished, very, very transferable skills into the next level. That's why I love him so much. But the only weakness I really have for him, there's a couple, actually. So we haven't really seen him at an elite level since his time at Pitt when he had Kenny Pickett for quarterback, who was in the running for Heisman, didn't win it, but he was up there. And obviously he was a first-round pick to the Steelers. So we haven't seen him play incredible until he was at Pitt in 2021. And he was also very systematical in USC. Maybe that's why we didn't see him play as well, but 40% of his catches came off of screens. So I don't know if that's on Lincoln Riley. I don't know who that is on the offensive side, but just be using a guy like Jordan Addison and just using him as a dump-off guy on screens, I feel like it's just not the right way to do it. But it does hurt his draft stock a little bit because we didn't get to see what he was like as a receiver this entire past season. So I think that really does hurt him a little bit. Once again, it's hard just to go off that 2021 tape, but if you do, he has a real argument for being the best receiver in this entire class.
Yeah, I mean, everybody really touched on it. I mean, his route running's elite, his footwork's elite, his release is elite. It's all very good. His Pitt career was amazing, 1,500 yards, 7 TDs. He was the Biletnikoff winner, except the one thing I just really don't like about Jordan Addison is his physicality. It's basically invisible in his game, 22% of contested catch rate. I mean, that is just horrible. I don't know how he's a bigger guy than Downs by a good amount, and he only has 22%, and Josh Downs has 77%. It honestly makes no sense to me how his physicality is just not there. So that, going into the NFL is not something you want to, be looking at. You don't want that in your receivers. So that's why, in my opinion, I don't think Jordan Addison should be drafted in the first round. I think he's just too much of a question mark just to take that risk in the first round.
All right, so we'll move on to our number 3 guys, the wide receiver out of Boston College, of all places, Zay Flowers. So, Freeman, I'll throw it right back to you.
Yeah, this guy is an absolute electric playmaker. Right off the bat, he reminds me a little bit of Richmond's KJ Hamler at Penn State a couple of years back. And he almost a little bit like a Curtis Samuel. Like, you can use this guy in many different ways. He's explosive in the open field. again, just like the other two, he's very, very small. He's standing at 5'9". That's going to be a question mark going to the NFL. But the only difference is when you look at Josh Downs, his success was catching balls in traffic. I don't know if that will translate to the NFL due to his small and frail frame. Zay Flowers is incredible in the open field. We've seen guys like Tyreek Hill, who he is very undersized. He is fantastic in the NFL due to his ability to get open and how shifty he is in the open field. So I really love Zay Flowers' ability to do that. I think he's a dangerous playmaker whenever you get the ball in his hands. So I think he's worth a back half of the first round pick. And I think his ability to get open, change direction will propel him to be a very, very good starter in the NFL.
Yeah, and for Zay Flowers, I'm just going to go out there and say it right now. I mean, he is the best receiver in the entire draft after the catch. He had the 6th most yards after the catch in the Power 5 last year, which is the most out of any prospect we're going to talk about in this video. I mean, he is just so quick. It looks like he's a running back out there when he gets the ball in his hands. And I think it's very, very similar. I think KJ Hamler's a great comp. I think it's very similar to how CeeDee Lamb played in college as well. We saw his tape at Oklahoma. And I mean, he would have those great routes. Obviously, that's why he was a top 15, top 20 pick, wherever he was. But when he got the ball in his hands, I mean, he was a magician. Like the stuff he could do, just making so many defenders miss. And that's exactly what I see in Zay Flowers. Another thing with him, he also has great bounce, which he uses to make up for his size very, very often, which is awesome for him. But that's going to transition right into my weakness is his size. Freeman mentioned it. 5'9", 182 is definitely on the smaller side for receivers, and I think it really does affect his catch radius, which hurts, especially when battling with defensive backs for a jump ball. Despite that bounce I mentioned, like he's not going to win all those battles just based on how high he can jump, especially with some of the corners we're looking at in the NFL right now. And also his route running, I think there really could be some improvement. But a lot of those things, especially the route running, I think can definitely be fixed. But man, that stuff he does after the catch, that is not the most coachable thing. So Zay Flowers, I think, could be a home run prospect depending on where he gets drafted to in the NFL.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he might have the highest ceiling in this whole draft. His speed and explosion is like nobody other we've seen in a while. I mean, his balance is elite. When he takes hits, in the open field, he gets right back up. He gets hit on the sideline. He's always, toe tapping. They've talked about it a lot. His catch and run, it's the best. Like I don't need to talk about it anymore. His ball tracking is very good for a very small guy, and his finesse makes up for his size. So also what I really like, what I saw of him is that, he played on a bad Boston College team. His quarterback was not that good. So you do have to cut him some slack. And my favorite thing about Zay Flowers is that he doesn't really have like a weakness. Yes, he could polish up his route running. He could polish up, dropping the ball 9 times last year, but I just don't think there's a big weakness on him.
Yeah, and really quick, I just want to touch on what you said. He was at Boston College with some not great quarterback play. He had the ability to go really anywhere he wanted in the country and be one of the featured guys on big-time programs, but he stayed loyal to his school, Boston College, that he was at. I think that I would value that a lot more than maybe others, but that to me jumps out. It tells me that when I'm drafting this guy, I'm getting a loyal player. I'm getting a guy who's going to appreciate the franchise, the system that he gets put in. So I just enjoy the fact that he has shown the resiliency in tough situations. He's not going to, jump ship too early on a team that's rebuilding. So I really like that about Zay Flowers, and I think his character goes a long way.
Yes, Freeman, you mentioned the loyalty and how great that is. Well, I'll throw you this question about Zay Flowers. Going to a team like Boston College, do you think that could hurt a player at all, that rather than going to a place like Ohio State, like Alabama, like Georgia?
No, it's all about the looks. That you're getting there. It's mainly the looks. The amount of coaching talent also is going to be, at effect. You're not getting Nick Saban, you're not getting the top tier guys. So yeah, you got to look at these guys who are coming from Boston College to kind of have a bigger step in the NFL when they do have like legit coaching to tell them the really fine details that, you're not going to get it at some place like Boston College where they don't have the top end wide receiving coaches. So as Jack said, Zay Flowers with one of the biggest ceilings in the draft, and he definitely has a lot to improve. We saw he threw on 10 pounds of muscle in a month, in 2 months, from the end of the season to the combine. He's a very, very special talent. He does a lot of things right, as you guys said. And I see him going to the NFL and just keep on improving. I really like where he is and where a team can pick him up late in the first round, maybe early second round. I like his ability to just keep on improving.
All right, so we go from a wide receiver from a team who attended a team that consistently missed bowl games, and now we're going to jump to a wide receiver whose team some may have predicted would miss a bowl game this year, and they went on that miraculous run. TCU, Quentin Johnson out of TCU. I mean, guys, we've already talked about that run TCU went on. It was so fun. I'll talk a little bit about Quentin Johnson here. I believe that he is the Anthony Richardson of receivers. I mean, his measurables are easily the best in the class. 6'3", 215 pounds. He's an athletic freak of nature. He had a 40.5-inch vertical, which is third among all receivers. He's 11'2" on the broad jump, which is fourth among all prospects. He's just your prototypical outside receiver. He's a go up and get it type of guy. We mentioned Josh Downs is kind of like that, but Downs is 5'9". This guy's 6'3". He's incredible on the deep balls, and that was mainly his role at TCU. He had the most yards per route run in the entirety of Power 5, as well as the fourth most yards after the catch. So he's just your prototype to just put out there and just throw him out on the outside. I'm not comparing him to guys like this, but he's going to be the type of role that you see for Julio Jones and guys like that, where he's just your big guy that you throw him on the outside, you send him on streaks, and you just see what happens. And for my weakness, I mentioned how great that size is, but he doesn't always use it. I feel like he could easily bully corners, and sometimes you just catch him playing as if he was a slot receiver, as if he was Josh Downs. Like, he's trying to be too shifty when, like, you're just like, dude, just jump up there and get the ball. Like, why are you running around so much? So I wish, and I hope he does in the NFL, use that size a lot more. But just overall, he is an unmatched in terms of uncoachable skills, but there's just some work he needs to do to refine his game for the next level. But I really, really think he could. And it's similar to Zay Flowers, where if he's in the right team, he could really, really shine in the NFL.
Yeah, and if you want to just make like a good wide receiver, I just think you need these three things. You need size, speed, and explosiveness. Those three things can just make a good wide receiver, and that's what Quentin Johnson, he has all three of those things. So that almost automatically makes him one of the best receivers in this draft. He's a very precise route runner. On top of that, he has excellent body control, and we've really seen his ceiling in some of his games this year. Kansas and Oklahoma State being graded above 87 in both of those games. And he averaged 18.8 yards per reception over his career. So very good stuff out of him from TCU. Just my weaknesses, Ben said it before, he doesn't use his size, 34% contested catch rate. He does not use that as well. And his route tree was very limited at TCU. He really needs to expand on it in the NFL.
Yeah, Quentin Johnson, a guy who people are putting him at 1. I mean, PFF has him ranked at number 1 on their big board. And I really dislike this guy as a prospect. I think he's a very he as a cornerback, you can read what he's doing. Yeah, I said he plays like he's trying to be a Jerry Jeudy wide receiver who's trying to make guys run the wrong way on routes. I mean, he's 6'4", go up and get the ball, and Chad's calling him a go up and get the ball wide receiver, and he should be, but he doesn't even play like one. And yeah, they do just send him downfield, which will work in college. I mean, with guys not even knowing what coverage are running sometimes. I mean, you see those mishaps all the time in college. In the NFL, where everything's so perfect and you're not going to have guys making mistakes, I mean, I feel like this guy isn't going to have the ability to just run straight down the field and throw his hand up and catch the ball. He's got to be able to, at least sell something. And I don't think he does a very good job selling anything during his route. He's big, he's fast, and he's explosive. Jack said it, and that's really the only thing that I think he has playing for him. He doesn't use any of that size to his
advantage.
His advantage, thank you. He doesn't use any of his size to his advantage, and I think that's what's really, it's making him seem like he's like, he's a man. He's so big. I don't think he's. I'm not big on him.
Yeah, Quentin Johnson to me is maybe the most confusing prospect in this entire draft. He's standing in at about 6'2", 210. That's an absolute monster of a man. I mean, we already touched on his other physicals, his athleticism. It's off the charts, but he plays like he's 5'9", 180. I really don't know how to analyze it. He's a very bad blocker. He can't high point the football, but I think he comes back to the football very well on broken plays. He's a quarterback's best friend in that aspect. He's a freak athlete. We touched on it before, and he encourages contact after the catch and bounces off extraordinarily well. But again, it's the lateral quickness. Jack touched on it. The route tree was very limited, and he just can't high point the football and use that size to his advantage. So I really don't know how to evaluate this guy. He's got all of the uncoachable abilities. He has some very advanced traits that you wouldn't see on bigger guys, but he also has none of the traits that stereotypical bigger guys have. So if you could coach this guy up and encourage him to high point the football and use the size to his advantage, we could be looking at a superstar. If you can't get him to do that, I really don't know how he's going to play into the NFL.
Yeah, I really think that's where the Anthony Richardson comp comes in. I mean, I said it, but I've heard other people say it as well. Like, you get this guy on the right team, like he is tearing the league down. But also, if he's on the wrong team, like he is the next biggest bust. So we'll see what happens with Quentin Johnson. Freeman, I'm going to bounce it right back to you. We see that little Ohio State logo in the top left corner of your screen. We got to send it to you. I'm sure you're just like crying over losing this guy right now. I know you just want him back so bad. Jackson Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver out of Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real killer, especially after the ball game against Georgia, not having Marvin Harrison for the second half. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba, who I believe is the number one wide receiver in this draft for the entire year. And I just first, right off the bat, I want to touch on the injury concerns. I mean, I believe that it was a bit of a, it's a hamstring injury. It was lingering. He tried to play through it earlier in the year, but his priority is to get ready for the NFL draft. It's not an ACL. It's not going to derail his athleticism or change of direction. We saw that at the combine, posting incredible times in the 3-cone and the shuttle. So his athleticism and change of direction is very good. His speed is good. He has a lot of game speed, so it won't show up on the 40-yard dash, but you see him blowing by defenders consistently. I understand the concern that he has played with Marvin Harrison Jr., who I believe is the best wide receiver prospect I've ever seen. And he also played with Rookie of the Year last year, Garrett Wilson, alongside Chris Olave, who was another guy in the conversation for Rookie of the Year last year. So he's had incredible company in his wide receiver rooms, but I don't see that being such an issue. He was incredible in the slot, and I think the change of direction, the hands, the body control is the top of this class, which should be leading to him being the clear number one receiver, which is why I believe he is the clear number one receiver in this draft.
Yeah, just to add a few things. I mean, just watching JSN play, he does everything right. And when I say everything, I mean the little things right. He is so perfect in what he does. I really love him as an NFL talent. I love him as, a prospect. I think he has, the ability to excel in the NFL. I think he's going to be one of the best slot receivers once he enters the game. I think he has the ability to spread, full field and become a very solid wide receiver. I mean, he does a lot of things right. And I mean, just overall, his talent is it. You saw it in 2021, what he did that season. I mean, a 91 grade. He's amazing. I mean, the speed isn't there, as Freeman said, but he plays fast. He slows the game down and plays really fast. He's a very talented receiver. And I mean, I can go on about, all the little things he does right. But, I'm gonna let Jack finish it up.
Yeah, I think my favorite thing is that he gets separation down the sideline over the middle without using his speed. He really just extends his arm very well. It's one of the smartest things I've seen out of a wide receiver in the last couple of years, not using his speed that way. And it's just his agility in the open field is also amazing. Of course, he's unstoppable in the slot. He had a QB rating of 141 when he was targeted. So, the QB is just getting better when he's throwing it to him. The only weaknesses I really see out of JSN is that his injury throughout the junior year, which we talked about. And he's not really like a full number one receiver threat on the outside. He's very, very good in the slot, and he's pretty good on the outside, but we haven't seen him, take over the game on the outside.
Yeah, I'll talk a little about JSN here, and I might even like him more than Freeman, which I don't even know if it's possible. But, I mean, you guys said so much, so I might just be repeating it. But, I mean, he was just easily the best receiver in Power 5 in 2021. He was absolutely an incredible route runner, just so shifty in every aspect of the game. He led nearly every important stat on the team, like we said, with Garrett Wilson and with Chris Olave. He had 1,600 yards, which led the entire Power 5. He had the highest grade among all Power 5 receivers with a 91.9, most yards after catch, most yards per route run. I mean, and most yards per route run, he had 4.01. The second highest was Treylon Burks, who got drafted to the Tennessee Titans with 3.57. That is a big difference between the two. He caught 90% of his contested targets that year, led the Power 5. And I know I keep repeating these 2021 stats, and that is really my only weakness for him, is that he was out after week 3 of the season with a hamstring injury and never came back. That's really my only problem, is because we haven't really seen him play football in 8 or 9 months. And I mentioned Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, but I guess you could say for the first few weeks of that season, teams were focusing on Wilson and Olave. So his 2021 stats for those first few games were likely not against the other team's number 1 corner. So maybe he struggles against NFL corners. I don't think he does. I think he proved enough in the later half of that season when teams were honing in on him, because he led the country in every single stat that I just named. So man, I think he is such a special talent. I hope this injury does not come back to haunt him in the NFL, and if it doesn't, he could be a superstar.
Yeah, and really quick, as we're wrapping up the analysis of JSN, I want to throw something out there, and you guys got to bear with me. I think that his game is a little bit similar to Justin Jefferson. They're both slimmer wide receivers, Justin Jefferson being 6'1", 185, and Jackson Smith-Njigba being 6 foot, 185. Both incredible agility, change of direction, incredible route runners. I think JSN doesn't have the ability to go up and get balls, high point footballs like Justin Jefferson has shown that he can do in the NFL. But I think pretty much every other part of their game, their hands, the route running, the agility, even the shake after the catch, I think is very similar. So I'm looking at a poor man's Justin Jefferson. And as an NFL team, if that's what you're going to get, I think you're very happy drafting Jackson Smith-Njigba in the mid to early part of the first round.
Yeah, I know you're saying poor man Justin Jefferson as a compliment, but man, he really could be. I'm not going to say he could be Justin Jefferson, but he could be. He really, if he really hits that ceiling, like I said, if that injury doesn't come back to haunt him, he could be a star in the league. I cannot wait to see what he does in the NFL. And I'll throw one more question about JSN before we end this off. Do we think it matters that much where he goes? Because he's always played with very great quarterbacks, Justin Fields, CJ Stroud, alongside great weapons as well, Marvin Harrison Jr. for a couple weeks this season, and obviously Olave and Wilson. So, Freeman, Will, or even Jack, whoever wants to answer that, do we think it matters where he goes in the NFL, or is he just going to succeed no matter what?
Yeah, so I think it's actually a weird situation here, because I've seen him, if we're going to say he's going to go around 9 to 15, that area, you're looking at potentially teaming up with his former college quarterback, CJ Stroud, if the Texans wind up taking Stroud at 2 and Njigba at 12. You could see the Bears ending up taking him to pair him with Justin Fields, another former Ohio State quarterback. So I think if it's any of those two, he's going to have a very good start to his NFL career. And there's other options in this first round with established quarterbacks, with established other weapons. I think there are some perfect storms. If he winds up on a team with a not terrific quarterback and no weapons, where he has to carry the load, I don't know if he'll be able to shine in that type of situation. But I think if he either has a good quarterback or at least one other serviceable weapon around him out wide, he'll do exceptionally well as a rookie in the NFL.
Yeah, I also think another perfect situation for Jackson Smith-Njigba is the Packers. We've seen the recent news of Aaron Rodgers leaving, so that means Jordan Love's new career is going to start, and I think he should rely on a young guy. And they also have Christian Watson, who, like Friedman said, that Njigba will need another weapon with him. So Jordan Love starting his career with Njigba would be a very good stepping stone with them.
Yeah, a lot of possibilities for all these receivers we named in this top 5. We cannot wait to see what they do in the NFL. But that's going to wrap it up for our consensus top 5 list here at Joe's Nose NFL Draft. Be sure to check out later on in the week our top 5 tight ends will be coming out very soon. But like I said, for this wide receiver rankings episode, that's going to do it. For Jack Kemler, Will Kwiatkowski, Matt Freeman, I'm Ben Chao.